Welcome to the Seven Figure Leaders podcast. This podcast was created to celebrate the success stories of seven-figure business owners, giving them a platform to share their insights and lessons learned in order to inspire other business owners. As well as that, it's an opportunity to build new connections. So if you're a seven-figure business owner or someone who works with seven-figure business owners and you're looking for introductions to potential stakeholders, strategic partners and clients, I'd love to hear from you or have you on as a guest and see if I can help make those connections for you. Just go to synergycfosolutions.co. That's synergycfosolutions.co and click podcast. And there you'll find the link to apply. All right, so we are live. So today we've got Colin Gallagher. He is a LinkedIn marketing specialist. Welcome, Colin.
Tom, how's it going? Thanks very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for being here. So best place to start with all this, why don't you give us a bit of a background of what you do at the moment?
Cool. So my name is Colin Gallagher, as you already said. I'm a LinkedIn ghostwriter and LinkedIn growth consultant. So way back, I'm actually a civil engineer. So whenever I say that to people, they wonder how I got into marketing. And to be honest, I don't really know. It was kind of a case of I was in the engineering job. I just didn't fancy it. Couldn't see myself doing it for 40 years. So I quit. Went traveling for a year, as you do. I saved up a bit of money so that I could kind of go away and not think about work for a while. Had to think about all the things I wanted to do. And then basically over a period of about 4 years, I went through phases of starting a business, thinking it was going to be the next big thing, and then it burning and crashing, and then going back to starting a business again. And then eventually the one business that I landed on that actually worked was social media. So kind of hit a stage where I had to like move home after about 3.5 years in, because I had no money and I ran out of visa in Australia. So moved home, started posting on Twitter, started to go well, started posting more. People were asking me, I thought then I could just do what I'm doing for myself as a service to others. And then that's kind of how this whole ghostwriting thing came about. I did it on Twitter first, realized that Twitter and LinkedIn is much better when it comes to business, which is kind of what I was interested in. And here we are. I've been doing that now for the last 2 years, over 2.5 years roughly. And yeah, but if you had asked me 5 years ago, what would I be doing today? The last thing I would have said would be that I was a professional writer or even a social media marketing person. So yeah, that's a really fast wrap up of it all.
Okay. And so what exactly do you do for your clients? You mentioned a few things there, like writing, but what exactly do you do for your clients? Kind of what's the outcome for them?
Yeah, so there's two types of people that I help. One are either CEOs or consultants, just to keep it very simple. The CEOs, where I basically 100% manage their LinkedIn. So they give me the password and they don't need to look at it. The benefit that they get out of it is I build their audience, but more directly, it's helped them get clients. That's the primary reason why they would employ me, because I'm very much about, although I it's nice having a profile on LinkedIn or whatever. At the end goal for me is so that I can build my business around it and attract customers and build trust and network for professional reasons. And so basically I help them to do the same thing using basically the same system I've used to build my own audience to 30,000 followers. And then that's a full done for you service. So it's a bit more on the expensive side. Whereas for consultants, I also have we'll call it like a build and release package where I show them how to do it all and make sure that they're doing it properly so that they can do it themselves. So that requires a bit more time input, but it's a bit more on the economical side. And again, the goal for them is so that they can get customers. So it's like building an audience, posting about your topic of expertise to attract people with the problem who you've proved that you can solve. And then, sales becomes a lot easier when people are coming to you as opposed to you desperately reaching out to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what types of businesses have you got that you're working with at the moment then?
Yeah, it'd be mainly like B2B professional services of all types. So like marketing agencies, operations consultants, HR people, leadership coach, other types of marketing consultants and so on. But anything kind of B2B service, so like where you're selling business to business, then it would fall under that remit. Um, Nothing, no B2C stuff, or not like, shoemaking and that sort of stuff. So it's mainly online. A lot of it is for online businesses.
Yeah. Okay. And so yeah, over the last few years, probably the last year in particular, obviously, number of people there have been talks about things in the algorithm changing, a number of people posting, creating these so-called personal brands on LinkedIn. What do you think's changed over the last year or so for excuse me, business owners who are trying to find clients on LinkedIn?
Yeah, the algorithm's definitely changed. There's no doubt about that. It's harder on LinkedIn than it was now than it was a year ago, unless you're like a top 1% creator. It's to do with like the way that all the platforms are moving towards like a for you style algorithm. I won't get into why that is, but what that means for people getting started is it's just a bit harder to get reach if you're not like a natural content creator. I would say that the algorithm has changed, but the principles stay the same. So for me, it's always about creating value and getting it in front of the people who matter. So whereas before maybe you would be able to post and you could kind of rely on loads of impressions and everyone seeing your stuff, and just adding people, and you get in front of the right people. Now you have to just be a bit more smart in terms of like make it filling your connection list up with like doing targeted outreach to people who you want to connect with, and then sharing value with them, to not waiting for the algorithm to share the post. You want to go and take it and give them the information that you want them to see, so that they can then start to be exposed to you and then come and check your profile more regularly. So like that was always the same, no matter what. You don't want to be reliant on just the algorithm doing the work for you. It's create the value for the person and make sure that they're seeing it one way or another. You just have to be a bit more forthright now in making sure that they're seeing it, because the algorithm's not doing as good of a job of distributing their ideas maybe it did a year ago.
Uh-huh. And when you talked about principles, the same principles apply. Do you mean like general marketing principles? Or what did you
It'd be
mean?
mainly, yeah, I suppose content principles. I suppose I'm speaking my own language here. Principles about the whole idea behind content is like if you're using it as a mechanism to sell, the whole idea is that you're building trust so that you can stand out from the competition. So the way to build trust is just show what you can do in 1,000 different scenarios in over 1,000 days. And if someone's checking onto your post and seeing, oh, he's did this, and he did that, and they did this and that, it's showing really what you can do in so many variations that over time it would be just unreasonable to think that you're a fraud or that you're actually not saying what you are. You know what I mean? Whereas if you think about it, if like compared to someone who just relies on paid ads, you run an ad, it pops up on their timeline, they see that and they either decide to book a call or not. But at the end of the day, there's not a huge amount of trust or relationship there. It's just a lot more fleeting. So when you have someone following you on LinkedIn for a period of time, and you're doing posts that prove that you can solve a problem that they have, when they come through, it's just a lot easier to make a sale off the back of that.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And you talk, okay, so you're working with CEOs, you're doing the one-on-one, and then you've also got your kind of more economical version. Um, what's what does that look like in terms of is the desired outcome exactly the same? It's literally like ones are done for you, ones are done with you.
Yeah, so it's the same system. It's just the method of delivery is different. So for the done for you, then I just do it all. For the done with you, you have to do some. So obviously, it's a resources thing, like it's a budget thing. So everyone's going to want done for you, but it's the cost associated with that. And a lot of times, it might make sense for, even if the business was a bit bigger, to take it in house. Whereas I can teach someone on their team to do it, and they do it on behalf of multiple people in their team, as opposed to me doing it for multiple people in their team. So it's really just like the same system, the same outcomes if done properly. Um, it just varies, yeah, the method of delivery for each package.
I see. And you talked about, obviously, let's go back to the journey you've been on. You said you tried a few businesses, you were in Australia, then you came back, had to go back to living with your parents. Run us through kind of the challenges you faced along that journey, and like share as much as you want about
Oh yeah.
how you landed
We,
on kind of where you are now.
well, at the start, you just don't know what you're doing right or wrong. You're just doing things. Like, because I didn't have a clue. Like, I went from an engineering, you're not taught in any way in school about how to do, what's going to work in business or how to run a business or how even to manage your emotions related to that. So I found, like, in hindsight, I was trying really hard, but I had no like checkpoint to say whether I was doing something right or wrong at the time because I had no previous experience about it. Whereas I think and I feel like that's why everyone has to go through a period of like it being, really shit for the first couple of years because you have nothing to contrast against that happened to you in the past. It's all fresh experiences and you're all doing new things. So you don't know what will work and what won't work. And there are so many different things that you can try. Like we had a container homes business as an example where we'd run Facebook ads. And this was in Australia, and the idea was, oh, we'll install a container in your back garden so you don't have to do an extension instead of an extension, and it'll be dropped in a week, and everything will be great. Sounds great, load of interest. We spent loads of money on Google Ads, got loads of leads, but we just couldn't close any of the deals, um, because I was a 25-year-old, obviously. And then when I go and try and sign the contract, they could smell it off me that I had no idea what I was really talking about. You know what I mean? Thank God we didn't close any of the deals because if we did, it would have been a disaster because we had a partner to fulfill on, but like, who's to say what would have happened? You know what I mean? So we spent a lot of money doing that. We did do some like planning work and stuff like that, and that wasn't fun at all. Um, yeah, there was a couple of people who let down massively, and I entered those deals with the best intentions, but I just could not fulfill on it. I just couldn't do it. So, yeah, they were experiences that I had, like, that kind of shaped how I think about things now. Like, as we spoke before the call, like I back then I was new and I was really trying to prove myself. So I was like trying to take a big shot. Like we were always trying to sign $100,000 deals and take always looking for the big one. Forget about the small deals. It was always the big one. And then I had two business partners as well. And like, obviously then when you have two business partners, you have to share the profit to two other people. So that's 33%, 67% gone. And so you feel like you have to shoot big then because you're only getting a third of whatever's left after spend anyway. So that was all kind of just a recipe for disaster. Yeah, really, for me anyway, because it kind of locked me into this thing where I always had to shoot big. What I've learned since that, and now I'm staying as a small business, I'm more so thinking about how can I not as much get the revenue up, but it's like how can I stay profitable? How can I manage my cash flow? How can I make sure that I'm, making more than I spend? And it might seem simple, but like not on a yearly basis, but like in this month, I want to make sure I've made a good bit more than I spend. Because I'm not a financial expert like yourself, but just to keep it super easy, I want to and have at least like a 70% gross profit at the end of every month. And if I haven't, then I'm probably doing something wrong. And that will limit me in some ways because that gives me less to reinvest in the business and so on. But I don't really care about that because I know that reinvesting in the business didn't go so well when I tried it in Australia, and so now I'm kind of learning from all that. But I suppose that's like these are the things you pick up as you go along. I've learned more about myself and everything. So I'll probably say the same in 5 years. I'm doing stuff now that I think is that I will think then is I'll look back on what I'm doing now and think I didn't have a clue. So that's probably a sign of progress, if anything. But yeah, all a bit of a journey, really. That's a bit of an insight into a few of the things I could say more, but yeah, that's good. I think that
Yeah,
was
yeah,
a good part of the
that's
story.
that's great. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So yeah, I think most people are look back at the stuff they did professionally when they were 22, 23, and they cringe a little bit at the stuff they said or whatever. But well,
No, stop.
so yeah, interesting that you talked about managing the finances, tracking revenue, cash flow, profit. It's as if you've been reading some of my posts.
Yeah, I actually had like first-hand very bad experience of that because like in the it was about 3.5 years where we were in business, like on and off, kind of. Sorry, we were in the Australian two businesses where we folded one and opened the second one. We made about $500,000 in revenue in the second year, but like zero profit. But we didn't know that until the end because
Wow.
we were running, and I wasn't getting paid along the way, and I couldn't figure out where the money was going. And I just had absolutely, it was the most stressful thing ever. And I had the visa issues, which was overhanging as well. But like we had a bad business model because our cash collection cycle was long. It was like 180 days because it was a broker model. So we basically had to pay Facebook or Google Ads to get leads. Then we'd organize a deal between two parties, basically. It was a construction broker, I won't go into detail. Organize a deal between a buyer and a builder. And then we got paid on when they started to build on release payments. But like obviously we're paying the cash on day zero and we're not getting paid for between 100 and could even be up to a year, if there was planning involved. So it was just in that, like, that's why it was a great business model. But when you actually dig into the cash side of things, it was a nightmare. And like, I didn't get paid for 12 months. Like I got paid maybe like $4,000 for 12 months. But we were making so much revenue and I felt like such a fraud on the front end because it was like things were going well. We're doing all these posts and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it was such a hit on the ego. And that's like, it's cash is king. Like I learned that so much from the thing. It's like, it doesn't matter if you're making £1 billion a minute. If you're spending £1 billion, you're gone. Like you're just destined to fail. So yeah, that was kind of my experience with that. I'm sure you've seen that multiple times over with clients and everything, but yeah, it's such a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean it is very common. Certainly just not focusing on the finances, and a lot of those issues could actually have been mitigated had you planned in advance. And actually, if you'd planned in advance, perhaps you wouldn't have done it in the first place. So as in perhaps you wouldn't have pursued the business at all in the first place. But
Yeah.
who knows? Hindsight's a wonderful thing, and we all learn from the mistakes. And obviously, it sounds like you are, because you're now tracking everything and you're planning ahead with the cash flow. So that's the lesson learned, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm not going into like financial modeling deep detail on it, but just for me, I just have my pillars that I need to have, as in like I want to have about 70% gross profit at the end of the year with a certain amount of revenue. Because for me, I know that's safe. Like I have the luxury of being able to do that because of the business model I have. But I know there are, like, you can go into a lot more detail with it. For me, I just want to make sure I have cash. Like cash is king. Um, Learned that the hard way, and it sounds cliche, but I learned it the hard way.
Yeah. Well, the key to start with is tracking, which is obviously what you're doing. And then as you get more comfortable with it, you can get as complicated or keep it as simple as you want. And obviously, as you said, focusing on cash over everything else is the number one priority.
Yeah.
All right, that's brilliant, Colin. Thanks for sharing all that. So, for anyone who's listening to this, who's just getting started on LinkedIn, or maybe they're doing LinkedIn for a while and they're not seeing results, like what advice?
I'd focus like the basics. Just make sure your profile is optimized and make sure you're talking about stuff that your ideal customers or ideal audience members are actually interested in, not that what you think you should be talking about. As in, like, figure out, like, it's again so basic, but know your customer, as in like know what their problems are and show them repeatedly that you can solve them through posts and ideally videos as much as possible. That's just the key to it. No matter how the algorithm fluctuates or all the other tricks and so on, create content that shows that if you whatever your service does, it can get results and how it gets those results and get it in front of the people who it's relevant to. And when you do that for long enough, you can't fail. Effectively.
Brilliant. That's really helpful. And so anyone listening who's thought, I want to work with Colin or I want to have a chat with Colin, how do they get in touch with you?
So on LinkedIn, it'd be just Colin Gallagher. And then my website is linkedinaimastery.com with no spaces or anything. There's a bit of information about the consulting program on there, or if you just want to send me a DM on LinkedIn as well, that's cool. We can chat.
Perfect. And we'll put a link to that in the show notes as well for anyone who wants
Perfect.
to. Colin, pleasure to have you on. Thanks for sharing all of that, and good luck with the business.
Thanks very much, Tom. Thanks, man. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening. As I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, this podcast was created to celebrate the success stories of seven-figure business owners, giving them a platform to share their insights and lessons learned in order to inspire other business owners. As well as that, it's an opportunity to build new connections. So if you're a seven-figure business owner or someone who works with seven-figure business owners and you're looking for introductions to potential stakeholders, strategic partners and clients, I'd love to hear from you or have you on as a guest and see if I can help make those connections for you. Just go to synergycfosolutions.co. That's synergycfosolutions.co and click podcast. On that page, you'll find the link to apply.